What does world-class real estate look like to you?
It's about creating relationships,
consistent communication.
Estate agency with a great culture, who care for their people, who care for their clients, who care for their customers, without just looking at the number at the end of the commission check.
I think it's about amazing customer service.
It's about people, not property.
This episode is sponsored by Iceberg Digital.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. As you know by now, I don't know why I keep repeating it, but my name is Mark Worrall. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. If you've got any ideas for a new intro, please send them in. We'd love to mix it up, but habits are habits. How are you, mate?
Quite like the croaky intro then, to be honest with you, Mark. I thought you were going to lose your voice at one point.
Well, it is on its way out. We probably will have to keep this a little bit short because, I think over the next few days, it is probably going to go completely.
Yeah. Well, we were talking off camera that yesterday at the point of this going out is Blue Monday.
Yeah.
Kids will have been back at school for a couple of weeks. There was a lot of illness over Christmas, wasn't there? A lot of people getting flu and viral symptoms out. The kids always go back to school. So I wonder if we're sat in this place thinking, okay, everyone in the office is ill because the kids have gone back. I hope not. But we were talking about habits, slightly off camera here. And to answer your question, how am I? I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. Last week, I did a 3-day fast that we mentioned. So had a good reset to start the year, sort of physically and from a mental point of view as well. I've been struggling with a lot of injuries on the running aspect of things, but from a business and professional point of view, I mean, it's just non-stop. Like that first week, that second week, of January, it's just gone absolutely bonkers, hasn't it? So, it's good signs for the market. We were kind of flicking through a few articles as well to see what the industry press are getting a read on. Still a few kind of good and bad articles in there, but generally speaking, talking to agents, it feels strong. So other than a croaky voice, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, really good. And my voice probably is on the way out a little bit, but I feel absolutely fine. My son, however, is in bed. Poorly, that little illness thing, but not that will stop me. I've been in the gym this morning. We're now recording this at 8:15. So this has become a massive, we talk habits, this has become a massive part of my weekly habit, this podcast, and keeps me on onto good things. Always Tuesdays. I used to say when we recorded it with Sam many years ago, Tuesday was one of my favourite days of the week, and it is. It kickstarts the week if Monday hasn't been great, or if you have had a good Monday, then it carries it through. Recording this podcast, getting up early, going to the gym and that sort of thing. But yeah, we're really good. We had a really strong first week. I had a conversation with my mum who's involved in the business with us. She was away last week and I rang her at the end of the week and said, I don't think we could have wished for a better start. Had some big completions, a few properties onto the market and a couple of sales agreed as well. So, Rightmove are reporting that the Boxing Day bounce was greater than ever. We didn't do a great deal on the Boxing Day bounce this year. It didn't really have a lot of properties that it particularly applied to. And I've become a little bit cynical about it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But in terms of activity and what is coming out in the industry press, I agree with you. I think we're really on for a busy start to the year. It's what we predicted post-budget, and let's hope it comes through. But if we're going to take advantage of a busy market, we have to make sure that we have those habits in check. So I'm interested about the fast. Let's start with that fast, because I know that you've done it previously. I've never done any fast, but I've spoken to a couple of friends and clients who have done it, who really rave about it and do is it 12 and 8?
Yeah, the intermittent stuff. A lot of people do the intermittent stuff. I mean, for me, I try and juggle a lot of plates, and that's the thing that I've always been fairly strong at. I'm probably the person in the businesses where the final decision is kind of almost pushed on me to just tip it over the edge and confirm it in I don't know, 80% of the key decisions, even if it's a soundboard, just a nod, which, as much as that can be done in a matter of seconds, it does take an element of stress, upon your body. And you want to make the right decision, when you are making decisions. I think there's some sort of statistic that you can only make a certain amount of decisions in a day before you get like decision fatigue. But so for me, it's about kind of being mentally clear. And if I try to kind of sync a human fast to like a business fast, it's almost like that end of year audit, where if you locked yourself away from incoming for 72 hours or for 3 working days, how much could you actually get done proactively by really digesting everything that you need to digest in the first day from an information point of view. And then on day 2, from a business point of view, you can get proactive because you've got the information. You haven't got anything coming at you from a reactive standpoint. So you can get proactive on starting to put new processes in, fix some of the issues that you've identified from the day previously. And then on the 3rd day is probably where the magic comes, because you've had these ideas, you've slept on them, and then on the 3rd day all these ideas then evolve into processes and things that you can implement and actual action takeaways. So by the end of that day 3 of working on the business, you go back into the business, you're so pumped, you're so charged, you know the answers, you know what to do. If you kind of think of that from a business planning perspective, it's not too dissimilar from your body. You digest, you get it all out the way, and then the body can go to work on fixing the things that it wants to fix, because it's not taking up energy in digestion, which is where most of us do. What I also quite enjoy is it keeps me lean as well. So, like I lost 1% of body fat in the fast, and then since the fast, which is 6 days later, I've gone back to eating normally and training normally, but I've lost another 0.6% body fat because I'm not high carbing, I'm not high sugaring, and my body is now trained in fat burning because that's what it's done for 3 days. So even though I've gone back to where I was before, I'm just a more efficient machine. And the fat burning stuff is great mentally because it's where our brain wants to focus, really. It doesn't want to be with sugars and carbs and stuff like that. It's just very clear-minded. So that's why I do the fast. It's a nice discipline reset, but it does for the body what 3 days or 2 days working on the business does, for a business owner, really. And that's the synergy between the two that I would use as an analogy.
And it's crazy. So I would think all you would think about is eating during that time, but actually you have really clear brain capacity, do you?
You do. At meal times you get hungry because your body's like, okay, well, it's 12:30, you eat at 12:30, or when you're preparing the kids' dinner and you're putting alphabet potatoes in the oven and cooking up some chicken and chopping some cucumber and some peppers or whatever, and it smells good and it looks good, you're kind of like, normally you just take a bit of dad tax, wouldn't you, off the top of the tray, but you can't do that. So that's probably the biggest challenge. But there's little things that you can do, again, like with your business, try and linking it back to estate agency and business. The first thing I do when I get home is I'll try and have something like a green tea or a peppermint tea, so it feels like there's warmness in my body. But then it will get to like 7:30, I'll clean my teeth early, because you psychologically, once you've cleaned your teeth, you're in bed mode. So what's the equivalent of that in business that you could bring in as a really good habit to think, okay, well, this signs that off. And it's the same kind of thing. It's sort of linking it back in that way. But for me, it's all about that mental performance. And we've spoke about it before. I think this quarter is going to be a really busy quarter. So what habits can you bring in as an estate agent, as a business owner, and as from a health perspective, into your day to day to make sure that you can get the most efficiency that you can out of Q1. What about you? Obviously, the gym's been massive for you the last year. You've had a big change in the gym, big focus. Does that set the time? And is there a theme that you've got going into 2026 that you're kind of feeling? And the reason why I asked it, a week ago, I was struggling with my kind of goals and my planning for 2026, but I've really now, in that last week since that fast, I've got some mental clarity on almost a bit of a mantra, a bit of a focus for me on 2026. So I'm interested to know from your point of view.
So I've always been pretty active with playing rugby 3 times a week and going to the gym as part of that. But actually my gym routine almost came accidentally. And I think whatever habit that you are trying to do, it has to be easy, or you have to try and make it as easy as it possibly can be. Now, what happened for me is the gym basically opened 2 doors down from the office, and it was a CrossFit gym. I'd never done CrossFit and had certain perceptions of it. And then my brother went and he was like, no, come on, try it. And because it's easy, now that is into my daily routine. So it's built up from going a couple of times a week to going every morning before work. Don't train at the weekends, but 5 or minimum 4 times a week I'll go. And actually, I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy the progress, and it's really challenging. So going to the gym and pushing some weights around is what I've done for a number of years. That's fine, but never really had particular targets or goals. Whereas with this gym, there is always something that you can't do. There's always someone that's better than you there. And I find that quite inspirational. So that's just sort of developed. And as the kids are now a little bit older, I can leave and go to work. And because it's so close, I live and work so close, I can nip home after my class at 7 o'clock sometimes and just make sure the kids are off and then still get into work on time. Or more often than not, come to the gym and then come straight into work. So the habit that I've developed from the gym is just because it's so easy, it's so convenient, and because I enjoy it, it is not a task. I really enjoy going, and my goal for the last couple of years has been to achieve a certain movement at CrossFit that I was very, very close to last year, but didn't. So it's still there on the goals list to try and get better, because it's not easy stuff. So it might look easy, but actually it's really challenging. You've got to be particularly strong. You've got to, you've probably, my challenge with it this year really is to sort my diet out so that I can perform better in there. My performance is okay. I'm fairly strong, fairly fit, but my diet is still needs probably quite a lot of work. And a lot of that comes down to the dad tax that you talk about and creating those good habits. So we're going to talk, a little bit about habits, but it's become a daily habit for me because it's easy. And I want to speak to you about when you felt you started to develop some really good habits and how that's developed over time. Because that habit for me, if I think back to, being in my mid-20s, it would be really easy to lie in bed and not go. But because I find enjoyment in it and it's easy, that's now become, part of my daily habit. As exactly the same when I wake up in the morning and write my goals down, read a bit of my book, that time is pretty sacred to me. And Rachel woke up at the same time as me yesterday, and I said, "Oh, morning," and she made herself a cup of tea and then went off. I was like, "You're not going to speak to me?" She's like, "No, this is your time. You enjoy that time. It's important for you. It's important for that mental clarity that we talk about. For me personally, to start the day right, and it's all about starting the day right. That goal setting, affirmation, gratefuls, and then exercise means that when I come into work, I'm turned on, I'm focused, and I'm ready to go. And that, I think, how you start your day sets the tone for me. I know you've got, night owls and stuff like that, but for me, I've always woken up early and done that. So starting the day with that workout means that when work starts, bang, I'm on and we're ready to go and ready to make some money ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting the day with a tick in the box, aren't you? And different people will have different ticks in the box, but getting something done that is challenging, that is often tough, it feels rewarding when you complete it. And I think being the best influence that you can in your team is great. And I think for estate agents, especially in this quarter when things are busy and when you are feeling reactive rather than proactive, then it's very easy to kind of forget those little things, things that actually you have to set out. And we've kind of done a lot of sessions around, it was an action coach that taught it to me, but around your default diary. And to answer your question with me, what I've found has worked the best for me is just one diary, which is the only diary I have, which is my life diary, my family diary, my work diary, my, this podcast, everything goes into this one kind of 24-hour diary. And within that diary, I have my default stuff, and my default stuff are effectively the habits, the things that I want to lock in. And, if you were looking at it for yourself as a branch manager or as a negotiator or as a leader, whatever it may be, to incorporate what you want to achieve personally for the family and for the office, that kind of 20 to 25% of your diary should be habitually full, kind of almost every week. Sometimes a different week is a different week because you've got monthly things that you do. But typically speaking, if you've got those in, then you'll always be 20-25% proactive with your week. And I think that's the best that we can ask for, in life, or as a parent, or as someone who wants to train in fitness and achieve the CrossFit goal that you want to. And I think one of the things that I've been playing around with a little bit this year, that I was looking at my goals, and I was looking at the things in particular, the ones that I didn't hit. Because last year I didn't hit 3 out of 9, and I think I mentioned, so I dropped it down to 2 and 2 in the different tiers of goals I set, and I still actually sort of missed a couple of them, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then I was reflecting and looking at them, and I was reading this article from, it was Alex Hormozy actually, and what I realized is the goals that I wasn't getting, it wasn't because they didn't mean something to me, it was because they were out of my control. And then I quickly worked out that controllable goals versus goals that you're not directly in control of are really, really key to this. And this is where my kind of theme for this year is focused on. And I'll use an example. If you've got an office of a team of 5, for example, and you go, right, one of my goals this year as the branch manager or as the owner is to do 625, completed business.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's not a controllable goal because you're dictated by market, you're dictated by the team. So that's not something that necessarily I'm looking at this year as a very good goal. It would be a nice to have. It's a nice aspiration to look at. But actually, I'm coming down a layer and thinking, well, what part can I individually control, regardless of whether someone's off sick, someone's having a bad year, someone leaves, whatever it may be, the market plummets or whatever. What can I control that hopefully will have an influence to do that, but is directly controllable by me? And that might be that, I don't know, there's a particular thing that you do, which is I'm going to have at least one-to-one reflecting on the last month and the areas where I would improve for every member of staff. And I'm going to give every member of staff half an hour's coaching and training, which is an action-based half an hour where we do the project together. And that's how I'm going to get the best out of raising the skill set within the team. And I'm going to commit to that every single month. And that's going to be my thing that helps get the 625 within the office. So that's something that I've just looked at and gone, actually, the goals that I am hitting and the ones that I can control directly, and the ones that I'm not are being influenced by other people. And therefore I'm getting maybe frustrated with them, or I'm quitting on them earlier because actually I can't do enough myself to move that tanker, that kind of controllable goal. So like with your CrossFit exercise, it's rather than maybe identifying that you want to do that this year, is what can you do from an input point of view to get that outcome? And that's a really nice way to look at some of those changes within the team and with the office, I think. So it's outcomes versus incomes, or outcomes versus inputs, I should say.
Yeah, your inputs always generate the outputs. I've actually simplified my goals this year. We had a goal setting session last week, and Warren Buffett has a thing, write 25 goals and then pick the 5 that are most important and get rid of the rest. And actually my 25 were probably mostly interrelated. So I just picked the 5 that if I achieve them, the others are done as well. Interestingly, some of them will be a little bit out of my control, but then I take responsibility for the turnover of the business, for example, and then generating enough money to do what we want to do as a family. So I've really simplified my goals because, like you, I used to write out, probably last year, it was probably 10, 12 goals, something like that every day. Whereas now I'm simplified, and I think that will help me really focus on those 5 really important things to me. And if I don't hit them, then that's on me, because it's all right hitting 5 out of 9 or 7 out of 12, whatever it might be. Oh yeah, that's all right. Hit 5 out of 5, then you've had a really good year, and it'll actually, the other stuff will fall into place. And I've got within that family, health, business, as we often talk about. But I asked about sort of developing habits and that side of things. One of the big changes for me, I think, was when I read James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yep.
That book, if you've not read it as an estate agent, not even as an estate agent, I've gifted it to loads of different people, but as an individual who wants to get better, that is a fabulous book for, and some of it's pretty basic, but some of it is just like that light bulb moment when you go, oh yeah. That makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And I have applied a lot of that, like I say, make it easy. That's one of his things. That's why the gym now is a firm part of my habit every work day. It's because it's easy.
Yeah, I think the Atomic Habits, he also has an email blog, doesn't he, that you can subscribe to, and then he kind of gives you 2 or 3 things weekly to think about as well. I mean, it all stems from that ultimately, doesn't it? And I think, like I said, with the office fast or the business fast, is when things get really, really busy, it's very easy to get very, very reactive. And I just think for Q1, the kind of warning signal should be, and I saw someone in the industry, one of the suppliers in the industry, actually posted on Facebook, I think it was over the weekend, he said, I can't believe it's the 10th of January and I'm already not committed to any of the goals I set myself in January. And that sometimes just happens, doesn't it? We just go through the motions a little bit, and it's disrupting the reactive stuff. Is really, really important to stay proactive. In terms of taking it into agency with habits, then, what do you think are the key habits for Q1? I try and liken, as I mentioned it a few times, I'm really focused on visualizing a estate agency like a farmer's field at the moment. So which season are we in for a estate agency at the moment, and what do you think are the good kind of habits to get that world class Q1 in 2026 that you've identified from all of the SWOT analysis and the team meetings that you've had?
I said to my team this yesterday morning, these couple of weeks now, January is all about booking advice meetings, valuations, market appraisals, whatever you call them. They need to be going in the diary. We need to make sure our process is absolutely spot on with those, from the first phone call to the various touch points to the actual meeting and then the follow-up, because Q1 is going to be about instructions. Instructions come from valuations. It is a numbers game in terms of the more valuations that you get, the more instructions that you're going to get. And Q1, our year will be made on the instructions that we get in Q1, in my opinion. So this quarter should be all about reaching out to previous prospects, speaking to anyone on the database who has something to sell, whether they're on the market or not, because I think there will also be an opportunity for people who have been sat on the market to take them and improve the marketing, improve that strategy and get them sold. Because ultimately, if they've been on the market through that quieter part of last year, they're probably still pretty motivated to move. So you want to pick those right clients from that. But your sales are obviously always important. But for me, this year is going to be made on the back of how many valuations and how many instructions we're getting Q1.
Yeah, it's very much that, isn't it? It's sowing the seeds, in Q1.
That's the same as every year, but I think more so this year because of how the end of the year was.
Well, I think it's about the efficiencies. I think in the past we've gone scattergun, get boards up, get listings, get contracts signed, and just get them on. And often, a lot of agencies, I mean, over the years, that I've been in agency, less avocado, more where I was before, which coincidentally, my old business, Le Monde, bought those the back end of December. Actually, a transaction went through. But when I was at that particular company, before it was a corporate, our focus was in the new year, just get them on. A little bit overpriced, if you're doing a bit of a deal on your fee, you're doing a bit of a deal on the fee, but it was at all costs, get them on. And I think what hopefully people listening to this podcast and where mine and your head is aligned is, yes, get them on, but deal with good clients, get good stock, good fees, good efficiency, because we've all seen the diagram and we all can work out from a maths point of view that 20 listings that are at 1% that are a little bit overvalued are not as good as 12 that are signed up at 1.7% that you're going to sell 80% of. If we want the quality, because the time is too important to us these days. There's so much to do as an estate agent from an admin and from a process perspective that we don't really have the time to waste on those nice board or a whiteboard figure. It's just not there. So that's the definition of Q1 for me is efficient, good quality. That's really, it's like with your training. If you want to achieve that exercise, that particular thing in CrossFit, well, you could go to the gym 4 times a week for the rest of the year. But if you don't have something specific that's focusing on achieving it, you're not going to get it. You're just going to be the same, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. And I think we had a conversation in the office last week, and I was really pleased with one of our team members because she's been with us a couple of years, and she just sort of turned around and said, well, is that good business? And I thought that is exactly the question that we want our, so-called junior members of the team to be asking. And we talked about it last week. It's very tempting at this time of year to just take anything on because you need those numbers. But I think, I did it last week. Thought, right, well, okay, that's not the business that I would normally do. But as a business, we need just to get off the mark in terms of, an instruction at minimum fee, but we're off the mark. And now this week, it's going to be all about trying to get higher quality stuff. But I think you've got to take the properties that you want to list rather than getting carried away in that Q1 list and taking on bad clients that are going to, because ultimately there's no point taking business on in January that's going to cost you money, because it's very, very easy to do as estate agents, take on clients that are overpriced, that are going to sap your time because they're really needy, and then they're just going to withdraw because they're never going to sell because it's overpriced. So yes, it is about instructions. And yes, it's about valuations, but it is also a time to be brave and be prepared to walk away from business if it isn't the right stuff for your business. So I think we talked about it last week. I think that's probably going to be a bit of a running theme throughout this quarter, as you mentioned, but it is going to be very much about trying to find those clients that are the right clients and get as many of them onto the market as you possibly can at the right price and at the right fees, because even though we think the market is going to improve, it is still going to be an opportunity for buyers to pay what they are willing to pay, because I think there'll be a lot more sellers coming to market than there will be buyers coming into the market over the next few months. Although there's talk about interest rates, bank interest rates coming down further in February, our mortgage advisor was telling us yesterday. So I think we are going to see quite a positive market, but buyers, in my opinion, are going to be in a position probably by mid-February to have the pick of, 3 or 4 options on houses, and therefore if you've got one that's overpriced or presented really badly or whatever it is, it'll just be sat there and it'll end up costing you money.
Yeah, and I think also it's really working out, when you say a good market, well, which bucket, which head are we in? Because for estate agents, a good market is a strong amount of transactions that convert. The harsh reality for our businesses, just our businesses, not our clients, it kind of doesn't really matter what prices are doing in reality. From a just purely business profit and loss perspective, we want transactions that convert. Whereas from a PR, press, media perspective, a good market is where prices are typically climbing. Lots of stuff selling, prices are climbing. Halifax reported that I think 6 months in a row that prices had dipped a little bit, and I think their report showed that in the 12 months of last year, it was 0.3 or 0.4% increase, I think it was, which is a pretty flat market. So the media could spin that quite a negative way. But for us, what we know is the back end of last year, pretty comfortable with that, kind of, it's pretty flat. Everyone knows where they stand. Actually, for us, a little bit of bad press around the market helps with the negotiation part. It keeps everyone's expectations.
And you saw that, didn't you? You saw negotiations. You saw clients being more open to price realignments and that sort of thing. So you are right. That little bit of bad press, and we've all had it. Oh, the market's flat because of the budget, isn't it? Yeah. Do you still want to move? Yeah. Well, we need to do something about it then.
Yeah, it's funny because working with Mike, my business partner, because his background was lettings, and obviously my background was sales. the first year was the first year. It was kind of whatever. But year 2 and year 3, when we were reflecting on figures, I've really had to sort of explain to Mike, and he's really grasped it now because he's used to just seeing lettings completions just kind of gradually increase. That's pretty, it's pretty comfortable with where it sits. But because we were, the majority of our turnover in 2 and 3, year 2 and year 3 was sales, he kind of looked at Q1 and, he was, fell off his chair. It's like, what's happening here? I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. And one of the quotes in Atomic Habits, which is what I was just tapping away to try and find, is you should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than your current results. And that's a really good phrase to bring into Q1, because the results are going to be the results. We're going to get paid at the end of January, February and March, and it's not going to be exciting. If you're on commission, it's not going to be great. And if you're a business owner, sometimes you make a loss, sometimes you break even. But what's the trajectory that we're on? And what's the value of the stock that you've got going into your pipeline, and what's the value of the stock that you're listing? Because that trajectory is really the focus for Q1. It's almost just ignore the bankings and ignore the turnover numbers and just focus on that kind of that graph, that vertical line that you're trying to create, basically. And a long-term thinking quote that reframes short-term frustration is how that's summarized.
It's fabulous time of year to hear that quote. So we said that this is going out the day after Blue Monday, apparently the unhappiest day of the year. Bullshit as far as I'm concerned, because it's like a week before my birthday. But this is also, apparently the time that people give up on their goals and their, good habits. So, hopefully having this conversation about habits, creating good habits, and then lined up with that quote, because it's really, if you aren't getting the results, it is easy to get demotivated and down about it. But remember what Ian just said in terms of, as estate agents, we're very unlikely to break any records in Q1. But actually, what you can do is set yourself up to break some records by the end of the year, and always consider that, what was the quote?
You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than your current results. And that's very much framing long-term. It's a long-term thinking focus that reframes the short-term frustration. And it's a good mindset to take into this quarter, because people, and you see it with staff, a lot of people have had staff reviews at the end of the year. They've got a change of OTE, which on paper sounds good across a 12-month window. But once they get to Q1, it's awful. It's like my OTE does not represent what I thought it was going to, because what all staff do with their OTEs is they divide it by 12 and expect to get banked that. And then in Q1, what we know is we're going to bank like 10% of our income, 15% of our income, and then the rest of it. And normally in Q4, it's like 30%, of the income or more sometimes. So you have to kind of structure yourself to be able to think long term and not get frustrated short term, and think about that trajectory, think about that graph. And that's why I liken a estate agency to a farmer sowing the seed and harvesting the crops, because that's what we're doing throughout the year. It's funny what you were just talking about there as well. Another kind of mindset to take into Q1. I worked for the first half of last year with a performance coach, and really high standard guy, got letters behind his name, etc. Done some amazing challenges. But one of the things that he was talking to me about races was, you never go into these ultras, and actually it's race week at the time that this is going out. I'm racing on the Saturday. So I've had a virus throughout the whole of December. Can't get my fitness back. I woke up yesterday morning, my back had gone. Something had happened with my back. I've rolled my ankle. I've not been able to train properly for 6 weeks, but I'm strong in the gym. And what he taught me to reframe is, okay, well, these are all your problems. You can't do anything about those, really. Where are you strong and where can you focus? And what I've noticed with my training at the moment is, because this is a coastal run from Land's End for 50 miles down the coastal side of things, is very up and down, but not massive climbs.
In January, sounds delightful.
Yeah, it's going to be wet. It's going to be windy. We just had the storm hit exactly at that point. So the terrain is smashed to pieces, but I'm not I'm not fit, but my fueling's going to be good and my legs are strong. And that's where you can focus. And it's the same thing if you adapt that to yourself or your office is, okay, well, this and this and this is not great. We can work on that from a trajectory point of view and get better at that for the next month, the next quarter, the next race. But we're really good here. So let's double down on that. And let's remember that that's where the strength is going to come in, and use that as a really nice way of going, okay, we'll put that down as a long-term grower, but short-term, this is where we're doubling down at the moment. And I think that's a nice way to think about kind of January and Q1 really. So hopefully people can use that and kind of work it into their offices in the way that they see fit.
Yeah, and particularly if we are talking about, if people are listening to radio and listening to this unhappiest day of the year bullshit, then actually that is a really good point. Let's focus on the positives. Let's keep morale up. Let's use Regina's quote about enthusiasm. Without it, you'll fall flat. With it, you will rise. I think that in this time, if people don't like January, looking at the positives, looking at a long-term viewpoint and taking a positive mindset into it will make a big difference to the effect of a year. So those would be my three things to take away from today's discussion and input, because none of those things actually cost you any money. It's all in your head and being disciplined enough to be aware of it. And I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Forget that Blue Monday nonsense. That's a media thing. Get back to the gym. I already noticed that your gym yesterday was dead.
Already?
It was dead yesterday and it was Monday. I couldn't believe it. Get back to the gym, get the habits in. It is getting, it is dark and dingy out there, but it will be getting lighter.
Yeah.
And just do the good things, do the good things, drink good water, eat well, don't fall off the wagon, have a glass of wine on a Saturday night if you want to. But as Joe Rogan says as well, get to the end of the day and earn your sofa. When you sit down on that sofa to just spend 2 hours of doing absolutely nothing, did you earn the 2 hours? And if you didn't, get off your ass and do something to earn it. And that's a good way to kind of get the reconnection back on those controllable goals, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to end there. If you are listening to us on the sofa, I hope that you have earned it. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it on social. Reach out to myself or Ian. And thank you very much for listening. We will see you again next week.